is best-selling author Ann Coulter, and with me here in Washington, D.C. is Mark Krikorian, the executive director for the Center for Immigration Studies, and also in Washington is Jonathan Swan. He's a national political reporter for Axios. Jonathan, let's start with you. I did some reporting tonight before the show on what happened in that meeting. Without belaboring the point on what the president said inside, this bill does not go close at all, in my mind, to reaching those non-negotiables that President Trump has set out very clearly.
Well, you saw it from the start. I looked up at the television this morning and it said, Flake, we have struck a deal on immigration. You could not have had a worse messenger for that deal than Jeff Flake, for a start. Secondly, as soon as I knew that it was Flake, Durbin and Graham, I was saying, OK, well, where's Tom Cotton? Where's Perdue? Where are some of these other people that the president wants to listen to? And the way today played out was Durbin and Graham were going to go to the White House. They had it all planned out. They were going to meet with the president. They show up. They go into the cabinet room. And the doors swing open, and in walks Cotton, Perdue, Goodlatte. And they freaked. They was like, oh, OK. And then the real conversation happens, which is obviously that the deal that was presented this morning.
I mean, but is Durbin and Flake, Ann Coulter, I want to go to you. Do they think the president, they must think the president is stupid. They're going to walk into this meeting and try to buffalo Trump on immigration on these points? Jeff Flake didn't vote for President Trump, and he wrote a whole book trashing him. And he's like, well, I have the idea, Mr. President. We're going to increase chain migration and do all these stuff. And take it away.
Yes, and as you say, he's so popular in his home state, he can't run for re-election. These politicians, they are like drug addicts. I don't know what the American people have to do. 3 times Congress has tried to slip through amnesty in the last 10 years in the dead of night. Luckily, it's now people are paying attention. And all 3 times it was shut down, not by a major network, not by one particular politician. Somehow it leaked out and the American people shut down congressional switchboards. We just put a reality TV star developer in the White House. Some would say he's not the typical president. Why? Because he talked about Mexican rapists and promised to build a wall. I thought on November 8th, all these Republicans in Washington need to see like trucks of Depends being sent in because they'd be so afraid of what the public was saying to them. I mean, my final thing I would say about this is, remember Ross Perot had this idea, it just occurred to me when you were talking about it, where you'd have like national referenda on certain issues. I so wish we could have a secret ballot national referenda on immigration, on any amnesty, on Dreamers amnesty, on amnesty for anyone, on the wall. I mean, I think we did that on November 8th, but wow, the Republicans want their donors and the Democrats want the votes.
I mean, Mark Krikorian, I actually am surprised. They didn't even try to dress this up as something that's different. It's actually worse than the Gang of 8 bill. It's actually worse than that was in many respects because it directly increases chain migration by allowing these 800,000 to sponsor uncles, aunts, adult children, all this, and then the parents get to stay for 3-year revolving, rotating periods of time.
I mean, when I read about this, it really seemed to me almost consciously contemptuous of what the president wanted to do. Look, the whole...
Do you think they're trying to blow it up on purpose?
No. I think they think he really is a moron and they can push him around.
I mean, it's unbelievable. They actually, when he said, I'll do whatever you guys want, when he made that offhand comment.
They took that literally?
I guess they did, but they've been working on this, Mark, for months. And this is what these bozos, I'm sorry to be uncharitable, come up with?
And you know what was maybe really struck me was for 15 years, the whole argument for the Dreamers and DACA is that they didn't commit a crime. They came as kids, weren't legally responsible. Well, this bill amnesties their parents, too, who didn't come as children, who brought them here. I mean, it is... I thought it was a joke at first, I have to admit. I did not think this was serious.
Now, Jonathan, Congressman Pramila Jayapal from Washington State made a comment today directly at this issue of chain migration. Let's watch.
This idea that chain migration is real, it's really only something that people who know nothing about immigration will say, because chain migration doesn't, for the most part, exist. It took me 18 years to get my citizenship. If I had tried to get my parents to come here as a U.S. citizen, it would have taken many more years.
Jonathan, doesn't exist at all. It's only 44% of all green card recipients this past year were from chain migration, and another 23%, Mark, were from other family-based immigration. Right. Only 18% were jobs-related.
I don't even know what to make of that. I was sort of my eyes were bulging watching that clip.
But that's how the immigration in the United States has ballooned over the years, and it's ballooned beyond what anyone had ever thought. And Ann, you know, we have this story that we're going to get to next segment about something that just happened in Denver, Colorado. Now, as you know, media outlets do not dig for immigration status on these crimes. So you have to, like, call, like, 3 or 4 people, you get transferred, and then finally you find someone who said, yeah, by the way. So we did that. We're going to reveal that next segment. But just the issue of crime alone is something that we have to keep front and center, because that directly relates to the American people.
Yes, well, that's how Adios America became my book on immigration, became a book on immigration. It was only going to be 1 chapter, and I go to look up, you know, what would any country want to know about the people it's bringing in? Legal immigrants we're talking about here. Well, how many are in prison, and what countries are they from? No, the government specifically suppresses that information. The media isn't asking any questions, and then they turn around and blow up at a comment like Trump's. Well, from the information in Adios America, actually Haitians do seem to be wildly overrepresented in our prison system, and Norwegians really quite underrepresented. And I notice only one side of this debate wants to know the facts. It's our side who keeps saying, hey, could you just count? It's not that hard to figure out how many immigrants are in prison. Could you count them?
Right. Well, there's a story coming out tomorrow specifically about Arizona, which will be hitting tomorrow. Jonathan, who has the president's ear on immigration in the White House? Stephen Miller is one of the last of the, I think, original Trumpites in the White House. There's a couple of others, but not many, just on this particular issue. Is Stephen Miller, does he have influence? I know the president is his own man. He runs his own show. But Miller is one of the experts on this issue.
Yeah, Miller has a lot of influence, and he's really the only one in the White House who actually really understands this issue and has studied it in a very careful way. John Kelly obviously cares about border enforcement, but he doesn't know immigration policy like Stephen Miller does. But, you know, everyone obsesses over the palace intrigue and the infighting. This is actually one of those issues where Trump himself has very strong, hardwired instincts and has done for a long time, immigration and trade. And so, yes, there are moderate liberals in there like Gary Cohn and Jared Ivanka who would be horrified by the comment he made today, but they've basically given up trying to really, I mean, they know where this is heading and where the president's instincts
And Mark,
are.
the president's instinct on this issue was always derided and reviled by the establishment. They called him racist, xenophobic. They're still doing it. And they'll do it even if he agreed to something like this. They did it yesterday. So the president sticks to his instincts on this. If you want to get rid of chain migration, then maybe he has to do some deal on DACA, but it has to be verifiable. There have to be real triggers. It can't be this. You know, the Goodlatte bill, we don't have time to get into it, is a lot closer.
Oh, it's a much better bill, there's no question. And the president's instincts, the way I think about it, is that he's sort of the man on the street on immigration. That's kind of, he's in the White House, but his views
Listen to those callers.
Listen
to those callers. Those African-American and 2 women.
Right.
Young African-American male in Chicago, and I believe it was 1 woman and a man. And those were representative, by the way, the calls into my show today. These are people, a lot of them are like, I'm not even political. I don't even follow Fusion GPS. But on this issue, I've seen my opportunities shrink, and I've seen the country change, and we didn't vote for any of this. I'm not racist. I believe in immigration, but this is wrong. And I'm telling you, people are mad. I don't care what they say about DACA polls. People are livid about this, and I think the president gets it. I really do. Everybody, by the way, great segment.
Joining us tonight, political commentator, conservative commentator, best-selling author Ann Coulter. Her most recent book is called In Trump We Trust. And great to have you with us. You watched the something of a love fest in the cabinet room with the president today, with some, again, of the most unheralded senators serving in either party. What do you make of it?
When Kevin McCarthy is the hardliner on immigration in the room, I think we can call this the lowest day in the Trump presidency. I mean, he was clearly trying to overcome the bad press of this Michael Wolff book by showing, oh, he's in command. But in fact, what he did was fulfill every description of him in the Michael Wolff book. He doesn't listen. He has no command of the facts. He agrees with the last person who
we don't need to go through the whole
happening.
damn book by Michael Wolff. It's a bunch of trash anyway.
Second,
but what I want to ask you is...
No, it isn't.
No, let me, yes,
second by second, he was doing...
Well, let me tell you what. Yes, it is. And for the purpose of this...
He was doing exactly, literally 30 seconds. Di-Fi says she wants a standalone Dreamer bill. He agrees with that. Kevin McCarthy has to step in and say, no, sir, I think we need border security first. He agrees with that. He's agreeing with people with a 60-second lag. And the Democrats are just taking the position, no, we won't take anything but the Dreamers.
Yeah, well, he says, without question, he says that he's going to have the wall. The problem I have, frankly, is that there was no discussion of the sequence in which these events would occur. And we know that if the wall is not, and I mean constructed, built, before there's any discussion of quote-unquote immigration reform, we know what's not going to happen. That wall is not going to be built, is it?
No, of course not. And any amnesty is a 100% amnesty because it goes to the courts. And the courts will say, oh, you may have limited this to left-handed redheads who came here at age 0 through no fault of their own. But gosh, we're going to open it up to everyone. Yeah. And then through chain migration, they get to bring all of their relatives. And actually, I can't say you're wrong. You can say anything about that press conference today, called by Trump himself. He thought this was going to be a great shining moment. At any one moment, you can say he was agreeing to anything. He agreed with Di-Fi. Yes, we'll have a standalone Dreamer bill, just granting everybody amnesty, and we'll get to that comprehensive immigration stuff later. No, Lou, this is a disaster. It was the lowest day of his presidency.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about the difficulty of the day. Let me put it that way. Look, I am an absolute committed supporter of this president. I am also absolutely, without question and unreservedly, a champion of his wall and making certain that we secure the borders before there's any talk with the... This was an assemblage of some of the worst lights of the Kennedy, McCain effort to create comprehensive immigration reform. And a reminder to everyone in Washington, what you do when you don't have a solution is you expand the problem. They made it comprehensive, vast,
well,
and by the way,
and also,
still no progress on it.
It seems, yes, but it seems as if Trump thinks he's going to get all this great press by giving the left everything they want. I promise you, he's not going to get good press from this. They're still going to say he has dementia. If anything, they have more arguments now with him jumping around and abandoning his base. His only hope is to be pedal to the metal, fulfill his promises, build the wall, end chain migration, and deport these Dreamers who are, again, as I said last week, they ought to go before MS-13. They are just a Mexican Antifa. They are the worst of the illegals.
You know, and you don't like the way they create so much trouble. By the way, the average age of these so-called Dreamers, the president himself refers to them as kids. They are far from it.
He corrected himself on that. That was actually one of the high moments of the press conference. I mean, every once in a while, I could go through and give you 30 seconds where he was great. But then the next answer is, I'll take the heat. It'll be comprehensive immigration reform.
Well, he did say that.
It's not disputing the Michael Wolff book.
Well, it is. The reason I don't like the Michael Wolff book is because it's filled with trash and fraud and fiction. And Ann, you know better than to use it as some sort of compass.
Some of it is
on the body.
If you actually read it, if you exclude the bad stuff, it's not that bad for Trump. It's tough on the press. It's good on the Russian investigation.
To sit here and boost a really bad book like that, you know.
I'm sure those people told him that, and they're the ones who were hired into the White House by Trump. If he doesn't want people bad-mouthing him, he ought to hire people who supported him.
Yeah. Or find people of integrity, which I think he has now discovered is a decided advantage. Ann Coulter, as always, good to have you with us. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
The president down in Florida taking to Twitter this morning, touting the booming economy while slamming Democrats as doing nothing on immigration, tweeting, "Yesterday was a big day for the stock market. Jobs are coming back to America. Chrysler is coming back to the USA from Mexico, and many others will follow. Tax cut money to employees is pouring into our economy, with many more companies announcing American business is hot again. He also tweeted, the Democrats are all talk and no action. They are doing nothing to fix DACA. Great opportunity missed. Too bad. And we are back with our talk radio panel from left to right on your television screen. Andrew, David, Tammy, and Rick. Nice to see you all. Thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
Andrew, you read this as a negotiating tactic, or is the president actually pulling a potential DACA deal off the table?
Well, the Democrats, if they were so concerned about it, could have done it in 2009 when they controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House. They since lost the House, lost the Senate, lost the White House, and lost the majority of states. So why should the president negotiate their way? Shouldn't they be negotiating the president's way, because he represents the majority?
We heard, David, though, the president was sort of willing to negotiate on both ways during that big Oval Office roundtable.
Right. And look, a negotiation is when both sides walk away and somebody's unhappy on each side. The president has said, come to the table. Andrew's right. The Democrats have had the opportunity to do this. They don't want to do it because it's a wedge issue. You continually paint the other party as this, as racist, as xenophobic. Look at what Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are doing. Look at Luis Gutierrez. Look at all the others, Julian Castro. They're leading a narrative. The president wants to lead a solution. And by the way, he gave it back to Congress. That's the constitutional responsibility. That's where it stands. And the president, frankly, he's followed the Constitution.
Newt Gingrich had an interesting soundbite about just that issue, David, that you were talking about, the identity politics. We'll roll that, get Tammy to react.
Over here is a left-wing corrupt establishment which sincerely sees this entire fight as a function of identity politics. Over here are the rest of us who are thinking, you know, a lot of these ideas are really weird. This is really a definition of life and death. We're in an identity fight in which if we win, they disappear. If they win, we disappear.
Tammy, quickly.
Look, I don't think that anybody's going to be disappearing here. Everybody feels that this is an existential issue. The fact of the matter is that this blew up on the Democrats. They thought this was going to be a bomb for this new Republican president in dealing with it. I think President Trump's handled it well. He was willing to deal with them. Jennifer Palmieri at the Center for American Progress said that they've got to be able to deal with this in order for their electoral prospects for this year to be good, and they're not dealing with it well. They need it to exist because they can't deal with the other policy issues. In the meantime, though, they're not really making any headway, and they think it's going to blow up on the Republicans. They're wrong.
All right, Rick, Democrats seem to be trying to make some political hay out of this firestorm of the president's comments. We've got Nancy Pelosi now this morning out saying you need to do a clean DACA deal, really trying to put Republicans in the corner. We also got Keith Ellison out there saying that if Democrats don't support a clean DACA bill, then he's not going to support them. Overplaying their hand here?
Well, I mean, look, I think we can all agree, sitting here, there's not going to be a clean DACA bill. I do have to say, though, I think the president missed an opportunity. The bipartisan bill that was agreed upon 2 days ago, the one that was taken to the president, the one that he indicated in the morning when he heard the terms that he was favorable to, but somebody else got to him in between, that would have been...
The reporting on that is not all that final.
Well, actually, I've talked to my sources, and they're pretty confident about it, but who knows?
Yeah, but why make a bad deal?
Let me finish. So there was an opportunity there, and he got his wall funding. There were all the things that he wanted. There were things that would resolve the DACA issue. I think it's a real shame that that was dismissed out of hand.
Well, you're talking about this bipartisan deal of a couple of senators. The senators came together. You also have to get the House involved in this, Tammy, as you know from talking to House members. That's a little hard. The wall funding here that was in this bill would have basically provided a doorknob for the wall. This was not funding for the entire wall.
He didn't ask for it. He asked for funding to get started on planning and construction.
Yeah, look, it's funny how when we talk about the Dreamers and the fact that the CBO says that's going to cost us $26 billion over 9 years and nobody breaks into a sweat. But with the wall, it's suddenly a big issue and you can't do it. We've got the money. We'll find the money. So, you know, there's different ways you can do it, whether it's through waste, fraud, or different management. That's not going to be an issue. the framework here is the president has an opportunity to make sure that Democrats, the Democratic base knows that their leadership has been a fraud. They've never cared about that issue. To your point, they could have done it years ago. The Dreamer thing for Obama didn't have to be an executive order if he knew actually how to govern.
You're setting up this enormous that there is an enormous opportunity for President Trump.
Right.
David, how does he take advantage of this moment?
First, he goes back in time, the Secure Fence Act of 2006. And when you look at it by the numbers, deal with the economic argument around illegal immigration, criminality, drugs, human trafficking. If it costs $18 billion, let's say it costs $50 billion for the wall, but you're spending $300 billion a year as a country on it. You add the security aspect. Now you've got economics and security together. Democrats are hypocrites. They voted for stronger border security. They voted for physical barriers. They're simply objecting because it's Donald Trump, and they're about to lose their wedge issue because they've attacked Republicans, and Republicans, frankly, have been squishy fish on the issue. Now you've got a president who says, you want to fight? Fine, let's have a fight. Secure Fence Act of 2006.
Well, 2006 they voted for it. 2013 Democrats voted for it. Andrew, I was up on Capitol Hill and chased down some of those senators who voted for this in 2013. Democrats who said this was so important to have border security in 2006 and then in 2013. Now they're nowhere to be found on this issue. Some Democrats say they are willing to go shut down the government over DACA. Nancy Pelosi alluded to that this is going to be the wedge issue. Is that a win or a lose for Republicans?
Have you ever seen the Democrats?
No, for Republicans.
For Republicans, it's a win. Have you ever seen the Democrats threaten to shut down the government until the VA is fixed? When was the last time American citizens got a carve-out in federal law like they want to give to the non-citizen? The Democratic Party seems to be constantly giving priority to the non-citizen. We are the people, the citizenry. Now, if we want to talk about a piece of legislative action that is passed through Congress, signed by the president, constitutional, that's great, but that's not what we're talking about here.
All right, gang. Great discussion as always. And as you guys all point out, there's a lot of opportunity for both sides here. See if any of them capitalize on it. Thanks, gang.